Do you know who I am? I don't care who you are! You will regret this!
The mall smelled like polished marble and expensive perfume. One of those places where money whispered instead of shouted. Arielle Johnson stood behind the sleek security desk near the luxury wing, her posture straight despite the dull ache in her feet. 8 hours into her shift, she had already been ignored, side-eyed, and spoken over more times than she could count. Still, she did her job the same way she always did, calm, respectful, professional. That was until the woman in red heels stormed toward her. "I've been waiting for 10 minutes, the woman snapped, her Korean sharp and cutting. "Do you know who I am?" Arielle lifted her gaze slowly. The woman was beautiful in a cruel way. Designer coat, diamond earrings, entitlement dripping from every syllable. "I'm sorry for the inconvenience, ma'am," Arielle said evenly. "There was a temporary restriction on the private elevator. It's for people like you to decide where I go?" The woman interrupted, her lips curling in disgust. Arielle felt it, that familiar tightening in her chest. But she didn't back down. "It's mall policy," she replied. "Everyone follows the same rules." That was when the world tilted. The slap came fast, sharp, humiliating, loud. The sound cracked through the air like broken glass. Arielle's head snapped to the side. For half a second, she saw nothing but white. The sting bloomed across her cheek, hot and unforgiving. Her ears ringing as gasps erupted around them. She tasted blood. Time slowed. Phones were raised. Shoppers froze mid-step. Somewhere, a child started crying. The woman's hand hovered in the air, fingers trembling. Not from regret, but from rage. "How dare you speak to me like that?" she hissed. "You should know your place." Arielle's heart pounded so hard she thought it might tear through her chest. Every instinct screamed at her to react, to shout, to cry, to defend herself. But she didn't. Slowly, deliberately, she turned her face back. Her cheek burned. Her eyes shimmered, but no tears fell. Instead, she straightened her uniform, smoothing invisible wrinkles with shaking fingers. When she spoke, her voice was quiet, but it carried. "I was only doing my job." That was when footsteps approached, measured, heavy, commanding. From the other end of the hall, Kang Min-Jae finally looked up from his phone. He had been discussing stock figures, half listening, half bored, until the sound reached him. Not the shouting, the slap. His eyes landed on the scene, and his breath stalled. The red mark on her face stood out violently against her dark skin. The way she held herself, proud, wounded, unbroken, hit him like a fist to the chest. "So-yoon." His voice was calm, too calm. The woman turned instantly. "Appa, she disrespected me." "What?" Min-Jae interrupted, stepping closer, his gaze never leaving Arielle. "Did you just do?" The mall manager rushed forward, bowing repeatedly, apologies tumbling from his mouth. "Sir, please, this is a misunderstanding. Clear the area," Min-Jae said quietly. The authority in his tone shut everyone up. Arielle looked at him then, really looked. Tall, impeccably dressed, power clinging to him like a shadow. Another rich man, she thought. Another man who would look away. But he didn't. His eyes softened, not with pity, but something heavier. Something like guilt. And in that moment, without either of them knowing it, a single act of cruelty tied their lives together forever. Because Min-Jae realized something terrifying. He wanted to protect the woman his sister had just broken. And Arielle Johnson had no idea that the man watching her was about to turn her world upside down. The mall emptied in uneasy waves. Security ushered people away. Store gates rolled down halfway, and the noise faded into a strange, echoing quiet. Arielle stood behind the desk, her hands resting on the counter to keep them from shaking. Her cheeks still throbbed, but the worst pain sat somewhere deeper, heavy and humiliating. She had learned long ago that public shame lingered longer than bruises. The woman who slapped her, So-yoon, was still talking, her voice sharp and offended. "This is ridiculous," she snapped. "Oppa, let's go. I don't have time for this nonsense." Min-Jae didn't move. Instead, he turned slowly to his sister. and for the first time that day, Arielle saw fear flicker across So-yoon's face. "Leave," Min-Jae said. "What?" So-yoon laughed nervously. "You're choosing her over me." "I said leave." The words were quiet, but final. Their weight pressed down on the air until even So-yoon seemed to understand she had crossed a line she couldn't uncross. With an angry scoff, she grabbed her bag and stormed off, heels striking the marble like gunshots. When the last echo faded, there were only 3 people left: Arielle, Min-Jae, and the trembling mall manager. "You too," Min-Jae said to the manager. The man bowed repeatedly and hurried away. Silence settled. Arielle's pulse roared in her ears. She waited for the inevitable, for blame, for dismissal, for a thinly veiled threat wrapped in politeness. Instead, Min-Jae surprised her. He bowed, a full, formal bow, the kind reserved for deep respect or deep apology. "I'm sorry," he said. Arielle blinked, convinced she'd imagined it. "For what my family did to you," he continued. "There is no excuse." She stared at him, words stuck in her throat. In all her years of working places like this, no one powerful had ever apologized, especially not like that. Slowly, she found her voice. "I don't need your apology," she said. Her tone wasn't rude, just tired, honest. "I need to be treated like a human being." The words landed hard. Min-Jae straightened, something shifting behind his eyes. He was used to people wanting something from him: money, influence, protection. No one ever asked for something so basic. Respect. "I understand," he said quietly. Arielle nodded once, professionally, and stepped back behind the desk. It was a small movement, but clear. Conversation over. She expected him to leave. He didn't. Instead, Min-Jae lingered, watching her as she returned to work as if nothing had happened. She logged an incident report with steady fingers, her posture composed despite the redness on her cheek. No tears, no drama, just dignity. Something twisted painfully in his chest. He had seen women cry in boardrooms over lost contracts, men beg him for mercy over failed deals. But this woman, humiliated in public, refused to fall apart. For the first time in years, Min-Jae felt ashamed of the world he came from. "I'll make sure this never happens again," he said. Arielle didn't look up. "People like your sister always find a way," she replied. "But I'll be fine." Her confidence wasn't loud. It didn't need to be. That scared him more than anger would have. As he finally walked away, Min-Jae pulled out his phone, not to make a call about damage control, but something far more personal. "Find out everything about my sister's behavior," he said into the phone. "Every incident, every complaint." A pause. "And one more thing," he added, glancing back at Arielle's retreating figure. "Do not touch her background. I don't want dirt. I want truth." That night, Arielle stood in her bathroom, staring at her reflection. The mark on her cheek was faint now, but her eyes looked older. She pressed her palm to the mirror and whispered, "You survived." Miles away, in a penthouse overlooking Seoul, Kang Min-Jae poured himself a drink he didn't touch. He couldn't stop thinking about the way she stood her ground, about the way she refused to beg, about the way one slap had shattered the illusion that his power could fix everything. And for the first time in his carefully controlled life, he wanted something dangerous. He wanted to see her again. Arielle woke up before her alarm. She always did on mornings like this, when the past refused to stay quiet. The city outside her small apartment was just beginning to breathe. Delivery trucks rumbled by, a bakery downstairs released the warm smell of fresh bread, and somewhere a radio hummed softly through an open window. It was peaceful, almost kind. Her body, however, still remembered the slap. She touched her cheek gently. The swelling was gone, but the memory lingered, sharp, uninvited. Public humiliation had a way of crawling under your skin and staying there. In the bathroom mirror, she studied herself. Dark eyes, tired, but unafraid. A woman who had learned, early in life, that survival meant standing tall even when the world tried to bend you. "I'm still here," she whispered. "Years ago, Arielle hadn't been this strong. She remembered Lagos, crowded streets, bright fabrics, her mother's laughter filling their small home. She remembered sewing late into the night, sketching dresses by candlelight, dreaming of runways and fashion houses that felt impossibly far away. She had believed talent was enough. Then came loss. Then came responsibility. Then came the plane ticket that took her away from home with promises of opportunity that never quite delivered. Korea hadn't been cruel to her. It had just been cold. She had worked twice as hard for half the recognition. Smiled through comments she pretended not to understand. Learned when to speak and when silence was safer. Still, she stayed. Because quitting felt too much like surrender. By the time Arielle arrived at the mall that morning, whispers followed her like shadows. Some sympathetic, some curious, some cruel. The video had already begun circulating online. She hadn't seen it yet, but she could feel it. The mall manager met her at the desk, avoiding her eyes. "You're suspended for the day," he said quietly. "Until things settle." Suspended. For being slapped. Arielle nodded. She had expected worse. As she walked out of the mall, her phone vibrated. A message from home. "Are you okay?" She didn't reply. Not yet. She sat on a bench across the street, watching the glass building reflect the sky, and for the first time since yesterday, her composure cracked. Not in tears. In exhaustion. "Why is dignity so expensive?" she murmured. Across the city, Min-Jae stared at his laptop screen, untouched breakfast growing cold beside him. The report on his sister made his jaw tighten. Abuse of staff, public outbursts, settlements paid quietly, apologies never given. This wasn't a mistake. It was a pattern. He leaned back in his chair, closing his eyes, and Arielle's face appeared again. Calm, steady, unyielding. She hadn't demanded compensation. She hadn't threatened exposure. She had simply asked to be treated like a human being. That haunted him. By late afternoon, Min-Jae found himself doing something reckless. He went back to the mall. Alone. No suit. No driver. No status. Just a man carrying guilt and curiosity in equal measure. He spotted her across the street, sitting quietly, sunlight catching in her hair. She looked smaller than she had yesterday, but no weaker. Min-Jae took a breath and crossed the road, unaware that this simple decision, approaching her without power, without protection, would change the direction of both their lives. And Arielle, watching a stranger approach her with cautious eyes, had no idea that the man walking toward her was the same man who could destroy her, or save her, from a single word. Arielle noticed him before he reached her. There was something familiar about the way he walked, measured, careful, like a man used to being watched. She straightened instinctively, fingers curling around her phone. In a city where she was always a little too visible, caution was survival. "Excuse me," he said gently. She looked up. It was him, the man from the mall. Not in a tailored suit this time. No polished shoes. Just dark jeans, a simple jacket, and tired eyes that seemed heavier than they had any right to be. "I hope I'm not bothering you," he continued. "I just wanted to check on you." Arielle hesitated. "I'm fine." It wasn't a lie. It was a shield. He nodded, accepting the distance she placed between them. "May I sit?" She studied him for a long moment, then shrugged. "If you want." They sat in silence, traffic humming past them. The city went on, indifferent to the quiet tension between two strangers bound by a single violent moment. "I didn't introduce myself yesterday," he said. "I'm Min-Jae." "Arielle," she replied. "Just first names. No titles. No weight." It felt strange. Free. "I'm sorry about today," he added. "About the suspension." She let out a soft, humorless laugh. "You don't sound surprised." "I'm not," he admitted. She glanced at him sideways. Figures. There was no bitterness in her voice, only acceptance. That intrigued him more than anger ever could. They talked. About small things at first. Her favorite cafe. The bakery downstairs from her apartment. The way winter in Seoul felt sharper than anywhere else she'd lived. Min-Jae listened, really listened, not the way people did when waiting for their turn to speak, but the way people did when they wanted to remember. "You don't talk like someone who's afraid," he said quietly. Arielle smiled faintly. Fear and silence aren't the same thing. Something loosened in his chest. He almost told her then who he was, what his name carried, the power that followed him like a curse. But he didn't. Because in that moment, he wasn't a billionaire. He was just a man sitting beside a woman who made him feel human again. Across the street, a familiar figure watched from inside a black car. So-yoon's fingers tightened around her phone. She saw the way Arielle laughed softly at something Min-Jae said. The way he leaned closer, unguarded. Jealousy curdled into something darker. "How interesting," she muttered. That evening, as Arielle returned home, her phone buzzed with a new notification. A video. Her heart sank. She didn't need to open it to know. Somewhere in the city, So-yoon smiled. Because if Arielle thought the worst was over, she was wrong. Arielle watched the video with her phone face down on the table. She didn't need to press play. The room felt too small, the walls pressing in as notifications stacked one after another. Messages, tags, mentions from strangers who suddenly had opinions about her life. Finally, she turned the phone over. The clip was short. Too short. It showed the argument, but not the cause. Her calm voice was cut out. The slap was slowed, dramatized. Text had been added across the screen. "Security guard attacks VIP customer." Her stomach dropped. Comments flooded in faster than she could read them. She deserved it. Know your place. Why is she even there? Arielle closed her eyes. This wasn't just humiliation anymore. It was erasure. At the mall, management moved quickly, not to protect her, but themselves. A formal email arrived before noon. Termination pending investigation. No call, no meeting, just words on a screen. She folded her uniform neatly and placed it back in the closet. It felt symbolic, like packing away a version of herself that had tried too hard to belong. Across town, Min-Jae was in the middle of a board meeting when his phone vibrated. Once, twice, again. He glanced down and froze. The video. His jaw clenched so tightly his temples throbbed. He stood abruptly, chair scraping the floor. "Meeting adjourned," he said, voice flat. Executives stared, stunned. In his car, the rage finally surfaced. "So-yoon." He called her. "You released it," he said. "So what?" she replied coolly. "She humiliated me. I humiliated her back. She's losing everything." There was a pause, then a laugh. "She's nothing," So-yoon said. "You'll forget her." Min-Jae ended the call without another word. That night, Arielle walked alone through the city, scarf pulled tight around her neck. She felt exposed, like everyone could see her shame. She didn't notice him until he stepped in front of her. "Min-Jae, you should have told me," he said quietly. "Told you what?" she asked, tired. "That your world eats people like me for breakfast." He swallowed hard. "I can fix this." She shook her head. "No, you can control it. There's a difference." Her words cut deep. Because she was right. "I don't want to be rescued," she continued. "I want to be believed." Min-Jae looked at her, really looked, and realized that silence was no longer an option. Tomorrow, the world would know who he was, and whose side he was on. The press conference was scheduled for noon. Every major media outlet in Seoul showed up. Arielle watched it live from her apartment, knees pulled to her chest, the TV volume low as if silence could soften the impact. She didn't know why she was watching. Maybe she wanted proof that none of it had mattered, that she had been right not to trust anyone. Then he stepped up to the podium. Her breath caught. The man she had laughed with on a bench. The man who had listened to her talk about bread and winter and exhaustion. The man who had pretended to be ordinary. Kang Min-Jae. CEO. A. Billionaire. Her stomach dropped so hard it felt like falling. "I want to address the video circulating online," Min-Jae said calmly. "It has been manipulated." The employee involved was assaulted by my sister. Gasps rippled through the room. My family will take full responsibility, he continued, and I will personally ensure accountability. Arielle's hands trembled. He had known. All this time. The screen cut to Soyun being escorted past reporters, her face pale, fury barely contained. The internet flipped instantly. Apologies replaced insults. Support poured in. Too late. By evening, Min-Jae stood outside Arielle's apartment, hands shoved deep in his pockets, nerves twisting his stomach in a way no boardroom ever had. When she opened the door and saw him, her eyes hardened. "You lied," she said. "I didn't tell you everything," he corrected softly, "because I wanted you to see me, not my name. That was never your choice to make." He flinched. "You watched me suffer," she continued, voice shaking now, "and you let me believe you were just another man." "I was afraid," he admitted. "Afraid you'd walk away." She laughed bitterly. "You were afraid? Imagine how I felt finding out the person I trusted could have stopped everything with a sentence." Silence stretched between them, heavy and painful. "I don't need your power," Arielle said quietly. "I needed your honesty." She stepped back. The door closed. Min-Jae stood there long after, staring at the wood grain, realizing that saving her reputation had cost him her heart. And for the first time in his life, money couldn't fix what he had broken. Weeks passed. The city moved on, as cities always did. New scandals replaced old ones. New names trended. Arielle's face slowly disappeared from timelines and headlines. But inside her, nothing felt settled. She took a temporary job at a small design studio on the outskirts of the city. Nothing glamorous, but honest. Fabric scraps littered the floors, and the air smelled like thread and steam. For the first time in a long while, she worked with her hands again. It felt like breathing. Yet some nights, when the city lights dimmed and the silence grew too loud, she thought of him. Not Kang Min-Jae the billionaire. Min-Jae the man on the bench. She hated that part of herself. Across the city, Min-Jae dismantled his life piece by piece. He cut his sister off completely. No allowance, no protection, no quiet settlements. The board resisted. Family elders raged. He didn't care. "Some things," he said coldly, "are more expensive than money." Still, the apartment felt empty. Too large, too quiet. Every space reminded him of what he had lost by trying to control the outcome instead of trusting the truth. One evening, Arielle received an email. An offer. A fashion incubator in another country. One that supported immigrant designers, creatives with interrupted lives. They had seen her sketches online. They wanted her. A way out. A way forward. She stared at the screen for a long time before whispering, "Okay." The night before her flight, Min-Jae stood on his balcony, staring out at the city, unaware that the woman he loved was preparing to leave it behind. And Arielle, folding her clothes into a single suitcase, told herself she was choosing herself, even if it meant leaving him behind. The airport was alive with motion. Rolling suitcases, boarding announcements, goodbyes whispered into shoulders and phones pressed to ears. Arielle moved through it all like a ghost, her passport clutched in one hand, her heart thudding far too loudly in her chest. She told herself not to look back. If she did, she might not leave. At the security line, she checked her phone one last time. Nothing. She exhaled slowly. This was right. This was necessary. Love, if it was real, should never cost you your dignity. Final boarding call. The announcement echoed. Arielle stepped forward. At that exact moment, somewhere across the city, Min-Jae burst out of a black car before it had fully stopped. "Which terminal?" he demanded. "International," his assistant replied, already running. For the first time in his life, Min-Jae didn't care who saw him. Suit wrinkled, hair undone, breath uneven. He pushed past travelers, apologies falling uselessly from his lips. He spotted her just as she reached the gate. "Arielle." She froze. That voice. She turned slowly, disbelief crashing into her chest as she saw him. Out of place, frantic, human in a way she had never seen before. "You're leaving," he said, breathless. It wasn't a question. "Yes," she replied softly. He swallowed hard. "I know I don't deserve another chance." She said nothing. "But I need you to know something," he continued. "I didn't come to stop you. I came to tell you I'll wait." Her eyes flickered. "No influence. No protection. No power," he said. "Just me. If you ever decide I'm worth trusting again, I'll be here." Silence stretched between them, fragile as glass. Arielle looked at the plane, then at him. "For once," she said quietly, "you're not asking for control." He shook his head. "I'm asking for hope." The boarding gate began to close. She stepped back. Then, unexpectedly, she smiled. "I don't know what the future holds," she said. "But thank you for finally choosing honesty over fear." She turned and walked onto the plane. Min-Jae watched until she disappeared from sight. His heart ached, but for the first time, it wasn't regret that filled him. It was faith. Arielle settled into her new life. The incubator studio was small, but it thrummed with creativity. Fabric swirled, machines hummed, and voices encouraged her to dream again. For the first time in months, she felt alive and free. Min-Jae, back in Seoul, learned to live differently too. He stepped away from boardroom chaos for a while, but not completely. He invested quietly in social causes he believed in, mentoring young entrepreneurs anonymously. Neither reached out at first. They didn't need to. Their next meeting wasn't orchestrated, it was organic. One late afternoon, Arielle presented a small showcase of her designs at a charity fashion event in Seoul. She had returned temporarily for it, never expecting to see anyone familiar. And then he was there. No entourage, no cameras, just Min-Jae, standing in the back, eyes soft, hands clasped loosely in front of him. When their eyes met across the crowded hall, everything slowed. She felt it, the pull that had been growing since that first slap, the shared pain, the unsaid apologies, the respect. He approached slowly. "I stayed away," he said quietly, "because I knew this had to be your victory, not mine. But I want to be a part of it now. Only if you want me to." Arielle studied him for a long moment. Then she smiled, a real, wide, unguarded smile. "I don't need your money, Min-Jae. I don't need your protection. I need you. Honestly, only you." He stepped closer, their hands brushing for a fraction of a second before entwining naturally. Neither noticed the cameras or whispers around them. That night, they walked the quiet streets of Seoul together, unplanned and unpressured. No power, no title, just two people who had survived humiliation, betrayal, and fear. Two people who had chosen each other. Arielle whispered against the cold night air, "I never thought love could feel like freedom." Min-Jae held her hand tighter. "It does now." And in that moment, the city around them ceased to matter. Years had passed. Arielle Johnson stood in the front row of her own fashion showcase, the crowd buzzing with excitement and admiration. Her designs hung elegantly on mannequins, lights highlighting every stitch. Every thread told a story of resilience, courage, and determination. She looked up, and there he was, Kang Min-Jae, watching quietly from the side, pride and love radiating from him like sunlight through the skylights. She had never needed rescuing. She had built her own empire, one where creativity, passion, and integrity mattered more than fame or wealth. But he had never stopped being part of her life, supporting her quietly, loving her deeply, and respecting her strength. After the show, they walked together through the empty hall, hand in hand. "You know," Arielle said, glancing at him with that same spark that had caught him in the mall all those years ago, "I never imagined love could be this free." Min-Jae smiled, brushing a stray hair from her face. "It's the love you earn, not the love you take. And you earned every moment." They paused in the moonlight spilling through the glass ceiling. Arielle looked up at him, soft yet unyielding. "We did it together, Kang Min-Jae. You just had to believe in me as much as I believed in myself." He pulled her closer, lips brushing her temple. "And I will believe in you forever." As the city glittered around them, it wasn't money, power, or status that defined them. It was trust, respect, and the courage to fight for love on equal ground. The woman who had been slapped, humiliated, and doubted had changed a billionaire, and, more importantly, she had changed her own life. Did Arielle deserve the billionaire's love, or was it her courage that made him fall? Watch their full story to see every shocking twist, betrayal, and romantic moment that will keep you on the edge of your seat. Don't forget to like, comment your favorite moment, and subscribe, because this love story is just getting started.